thank you so very much for watching the number one right here, podcast in the wrestling community. I'm one of your hosts, Juan,
And I'm your other host, Jean-Paul Leek.
and together we are
Rope break.
Road Break. I hope that every single one of you are doing well, are staying healthy, and also this time more than any other time in I wouldn't say our lives, we gotta go by the new day and feel the power of positivity because you know what, during hard times you gotta kind of like stay positive, keep the humor, good vibes, because this situation, we're gonna get through this, everybody. We're
Yeah,
gonna
like we say, you got to be smart, but also worrying and freaking out and getting all upset isn't going to change anything. So
exactly.
you got to like keep a level head, be smart, and just like Juan said, we're going to get through this. But you just like there's no like if you're sad, it's not going to make it better. So you might as well just try to be happy, try to enjoy things, and stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated, yeah, like I'm not gonna try, yeah, I'm gonna cover the thing, but like, yeah, hydrated. Yeah, we don't want to promote anybody here besides ourselves,
Yeah, besides road break.
besides our brand. And like I said, like Jean Paul also stated in Monday Night Raw review, by the way, is in the channel. Please watch it. 316 with Stone Cold National Holiday, and a decent show for what it is. Of course, we gotta be all. Everybody needs to be understand. There needs to be understanding of the situation because at least WWE is putting shows on. So that's
Yeah,
something to like be, I will claps and kudos for them. It's something remarkable because everybody else is canceled. Everybody else doesn't want to, know anything about putting shows, like risking talent. I don't think WWE is risking talent, but at least they're trying to, make our head forget about what's going on in the world.
yeah.
And yeah, like I said, we're gonna get through this, family. Just like Jean Paul was saying, stay hydrated, wash your hands, and also good attitude. Because yeah, you know what? Worst things we've experienced. Our grandparents, our parents went through like really worst things. So if we stay together, if we stay as a family, within positive, like Jean Paul, be smart about the situation. Stay home, watch Rubric. We have almost 200 videos for you guys to enjoy. So there's a lot of content you guys can watch. And once again, thank you so much for watching. All our new subscribers, all subscribers, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a lot of the stuff for you to watch. And this time, like usual, we cover the Broken Skull Sessions, Jean Paul Egg. And I want to say this is probably the best episode that they ever produced because it includes the best there was, the best there is, and the best there ever will be, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Yeah, like I said in the Raw review, this is definitely one of my favorites. I'm a huge Hitman fan, and the guy, like, I understand why a lot of people, like I said in the Raw with WrestleMania, a lot of people are pissed with WrestleMania being delayed or not being delayed. A lot of people, are happy with it. The same thing is with the Hitman. A lot of people like him, and a lot of people don't. And it's one of those things where I'm in the category where I love him, and it's one of those, like the guy, he's good. He could tell a story. Everything he says about himself is pretty much true. He does maybe have a little bit of like an ego and this and that, but he's one of those guys who backs it up. Not like Goldberg, who went in there and was like, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. And then you look at him and you're like, really? Like he's just full of himself. At least Bret, like the proof's in the pudding,
Yeah, you,
as they
you
say.
see some humbleness. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I will say that, and like to be able to get to like the side of Bret the Hitman Hart in a lot of things. I mean, we've seen I respect Bret the Hitman Hart. I will say I'm not a huge fan of him. Just I don't know, maybe just the wrestling style wasn't for me. But I will say like a technical wrestlers, he's on my top three. I will just
Yeah.
mention three of them. I don't know if you have a different one, let me know, Jean Paul. But I have Bret the Hitman Hart, I have
Mhm.
Chris Benoit, and Kurt Angle. Those three are the best of best technical wrestlers of all time. I can add like in the fourth spot Eddie Guerrero,
Yeah.
but the hit.
I would agree with that list. I would say the fourth, I would put Dean Malenko, and then I would knock Eddie to five, but that would be the top five. You know what I mean? And then Jericho in his day would be up there because he could wrestle with any of those guys, Daniel Bryan and stuff. But I mean, there's so many, but those are definitely the names. Like the top 10, you could switch all the orders, Mr.
Yes,
Perfect. You have so many guys, but Like he was ahead of his time. He could be wrestling today if he was, younger.
Yeah,
And
oh
he
yeah.
had matches with AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, all those guys.
And if
Like
you think about it, also like the contributions of Brother Hitman Hart, he paved the way
hmm
for like I will say the guy that wasn't supposed to be so muscular or so big.
yeah, the
He's the
smaller
first
guys.
one that broke that
Yeah.
mold. He's
hmm
the guy that like broke through by just being himself and also like just his wrestling ability overpower any other I would say belief, any other characteristic like oh yeah he's huge, he's ripped. No,
Yeah.
Brett again Hart was like a good ripped but like not huge and
Yeah.
also like not tall and everything. But in the end, he always put the best match in the card.
Yeah, because it was like once the era of Hogan ended, the belt was kind of going, and it was like it was on people like Ric Flair, Macho Man, and you're like, okay, they're bigger, but they're not like huge. And then
Yes.
eventually it found its way to guys like Bret Hart, and then Shawn Michaels, but then of course back to big guys like Diesel and this and that. So Yokozuna. So like that's what I mean. So Vince, he always has to get his way and stuff, but like Brett said, he did everything for the company, and you know, like
Of
I
course.
agree with that. Like everything, he accomplished so much, and it was because of WWE he was able to accomplish stuff. But it's also because of WWE that he might be so bitter and everything the way he is now.
Is it like you said, it's like there's like it's 50-50 for me. Let's start by with the beginning or like all like we always do. And they talk about the Montreal Screwjob. See, like the whole thing, like we've seen a lot of documentaries. You and me have seen a ton of documentaries, a ton of content, ton of different versions of the story, but mostly everything surrounds the fact that like Bret Hart, and he even expresses this in the interview with Stone Cold. He says, "I felt disrespected."
Yeah.
So the whole thing, the root of everything is just because he felt disrespected by Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Maybe he said something that maybe he was joking around, but it turned out to be real.
hmm
But it's like, hey, thank you for the match, Shawn. Brett will of course thank him, being nice, but keep it like the camaraderie. And he says, "Oh, I will always drop the title for you. I will do anything for you. I will not put you in risk." And Shawn says, "Thank you, Brett, but I wish." He goes, "I will never do the same."
Yeah, and I forget if he said that was after their Iron Man match or what, or it was just some show. But he came up to him and
It
he's
was
like,
a small
yeah, like
show.
you said,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah, like you said, he said that to him. And see, the thing with Brett, it seems like a lot of him with him is like he loves his business more than anything else. So that was like a thing in the business, if you got to respect the guy you're in the ring with, you got to do, like he said, he was never afraid to do the job. He never said, no, I don't want to lose to this guy. I don't want to lose to that guy. Like if it all made sense and it was good for the business, he would do it. That's the same thing with Undertaker. When has Undertaker ever refused to lose to someone if it
Yes.
was meant for the business? He wouldn't. And Shawn had no respect, and you always hear rumors that like Vince McMahon, he loved the clique, he loved Shawn and all that. He wanted to be Shawn Michaels, so he anything Shawn wanted, he gave him. That's evident in the feuds with Mankind and Vader and all those guys where Shawn just won, beat them, and it was like, really? Like there's no way that Shawn should beat Vader. There's no way. And all this other stuff. Like we said, Vader was supposed to win the belt. Then
Yeah.
done.
No, Vader was supposed to be. He was supposed to be champion,
Yeah.
and also Shawn Michaels put his politic pull.
Yeah.
He's
That's what
like,
I
"I'm
mean.
not
So
dropping it to him," because he said he's a terrible wrestler.
yeah.
Yeah. He
And
said like,
there's
"How can you be like this? So you're freaking stiff. You're gonna get us all injured."
yeah, well, I mean, and Brett did even say something like that, how stiff Vader was. But he
Yeah.
said like Vader would always apologize afterwards and this and that. So like,
Even Stone Cold says when I was like, "Oh my neck, oh
yeah.
my shoulder," he goes, "So I'm sorry. I took it there. I took it too intense," and it is understandable. But see, like, so the whole feud starts with that. That's the whole thing that starts the beef between Brett and Shawn Michaels. He believes that like he doesn't respect me as much as I respect him. So then it's like then the plan for Survivor Series comes together, and Vince is like, "Well, you're gonna like drop the title to Shawn." And he's like, "No, I'm not doing that."
Yeah, and a lot
Uh,
of people they always complain. They say like, well, what's the difference if he loses it at Survivor Series or loses it the next night on Raw? And he said it perfectly here. That's what, like, this clip, I want all those people who hate the Hitman and say, like, oh, he's a crybaby, he's a, whatever, he should have just, whatever. Like he said, if he beats Shawn at Survivor Series, he'll drop it to him the next night because it will teach him a lesson.
Yes.
It's like, you know what, you couldn't get your big celebration at the pay-per-view because you didn't respect me. If you would have respected me, I would have dropped it to you. You didn't, so now I beat you at the pay-per-view, but then I'll give it up on Monday Night Raw.
Yes. Yes. Also, Jean Paul, though, worth noting that Survivor Series was where? Montreal.
Yeah.
Where's Bret Hart from? Canadian. So
Yeah.
he said the next night was in Iowa. So that was will be back in the States. So then he'll be like, okay, whatever, I'll drop it to you. Because it wasn't my home country, it wasn't my crowd, and I will drop it to you. But like also Shawn Michaels refused, Vince refused, and there are like so many conflicting versions about this. Because even remember Dark Side of the Ring, which we will be covering that too, family. So for the ones that like always want new content, new ideas, we will be covering Dark Side of the Ring, new season next week. In a week, next Tuesday, we will be covering the beginning of that new season. He says that like Vince Russo, Jim Cornette, and Vince McMahon, they went through every single scenario, Jean-Paul. Every single scenario they presented to him, he did not want to know anything about this.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly from that Jim Cornette, he was the one. I mean, Vince Russo, like, for some reason, these guys like to brag that they're the ones who came up with the idea to screw Bret. Which to me, that's like the wrong thing to brag about. That's like bragging about being the one who shot, JFK. But it's like they're all like trying to be like, no, it was me. But Cornette was like, oh, well, back in the day, like in the 60s, 70s, if people didn't want to do the job, you just screwed them over. You just, the business screwed the wrestler over. So he's like, why don't we just do that again with Bret? And then they said, all this was going on. And see, Bret says he doesn't think Pat Patterson was in it, but why would Pat Patterson drop that line of like, oh, I love when you put Shawn in the sharpshooter and he flips you over, and like that's such a beautiful spot. Why would he drop that hint to be putting him in a submission? And like Bret even said, I should have never let myself be put in a submission where the ref could be the one to be like, no, he tapped and ring the bell. It should have always been a situation where he could kick out or, something like that. So I don't believe that Pat Patterson was innocent. So
I think all of them knew it. Like, the inner circle, no pun intended, of Vince McMahon and everybody else, they knew about it. Even Triple H knew about it. Mm-hmm. Because even there's a famous line that Triple H said. He's like, if you don't want to do business with us, we'll do business for you.
Yeah.
He does say that, so they knew they had to get the job done because there was all the fear that Bret the Hitman Hart was going to take the WWE Championship to WCW, and even he says Vince was going to help me out to negotiate my contract with WCW, but thankfully my lawyer helped me out, and he says there's no way because the discrepancy happens, the beef again with Vince is because Bret the Hitman Hart had signed a contract, it was for 20 years or so. A lot of money, and he said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to meet your contract. And that was because also, Jean-Paul, and you can agree with me, you can elaborate a little more. Bret the Hitman Hart, like you said, loved wrestling, but see, he loved the old school ways. And the Attitude Era was starting to begin. There was the first steps of the Attitude Era. And then Bret the Hitman Hart, I don't think he could adapt as well because, a lot of riskiness, like people taking shots, being using more foul language, things like that.
Yeah, you could definitely see.
It was always in the model of a old school wrestling.
Yeah, you could definitely see things were changing. Like you said, Bret was a big fan of I wouldn't say cartoon wrestling, but he was a fan of where it was it was more kid friendly. It was more you came there to watch an athletic contest between two guys. You didn't come there to watch two guys cut a promo, be doing crotch chops and all that kind of stuff. So, but to me, he would have been the perfect, to me, it should have been DX versus the Hart Foundation. That should have been feuds that just went on, through 96, 97, 98, 99. That should have just went on and on and on. You can introduce guys like Stone Cold, The Undertaker. You could, all these guys, the Nation of Domination. You should have kept them together. You could have had Farouk and The Rock be in a fight for the leadership, and then you could have these three factions go after each other. You could have did so much with it. But instead, they just wasted those guys away. They jobbed out Anvil. He left. Bulldog left. Brett left. You know what I mean? They all left. Owen stayed. Then they did that stupid Blue Blazer thing. Then Vince Russo's idea was, oh, let's have him come down on a tow cable or a zip line, whatever. And then that unfortunate thing happened with Owen Hart. So it was like, the whole Hart Foundation is just wasted away, and that's a thing, And the only one who's here is Brett. And that's another reason why I said, like, people are like, oh, he's a bitter, angry old man. It's like, well, look at everything he's experienced in his life.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, bring the Hitman Hart, like you said, chosen one right before Shawn Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
He won the IC belt. Great match with, like, Mr. Perfect. Then he becomes the champion, beating Ric Flair. Then, of course, he drops it, and then he gets it back. It has the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels. So he was the number one guy. He gets like he even says, I was all about story, creating a story, telling good matches. It's like I wanted to give Vince a whole library of less great matches. That's what he says. And the feuds with Owen Hart, even like the Iron Man match with Shawn, match with the Undertaker, and everything. And then
the match with Bulldog, Piper,
Bulldog
all those
SummerSlam.
guys.
Yes, yeah, that's a great match.
He brought Diesel to his best matches.
Yes, exactly. And then even like the Bulldog
and Razor, I think Rumble '93, I think was a legit match.
Yes, it's a really good match. And like the thing with the Bulldog, he pitched the idea. He's like, why don't we go last?
Yeah,
he was the one that set up the main event.
And this is the thing with Bulldog. If it's the one that was in Wembley, correct?
Yes.
SummerSlam
'92.
Bulldog, I'm a big fan of the Bulldog. Not gonna talk ill of the dead, but from what they say, he was really drugged up. He was not sober at all. And Brett was like, what the hell? And he carried him through the whole match.
Yeah.
So he was calling all the spots, do this, do like if he said do a power slam or do this, Bulldog could still do it, but he didn't know anything. He didn't know what. He completely forgot. Yeah, he was done. So Brett had to call the whole match, and people say like, oh, this was a great match and it was this and that, but it's like, if you really know what's going on, it's like it's a great match, but you owe 95% of that to Brett.
Oh, you own a lot, yeah. Like Bret Hart, his contributions to professional wrestling are endless, because he did this with the Bulldog, one of the best matches in SummerSlam history.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulldog becomes the champion. He drops the belt to the Bulldogs. He knew there was money in it. He does it. So great stuff. And then, like I said, to be screwed in the way that like we all know. Shawn Michaels, of course, he knew about it. Triple H knew about it, and all the thing with WCW sign, and then the stuff that we've seen in the documentary that he did, Wrestling in Shadows, I think it's called.
Yeah.
He told even like the Undertaker went to get Vince. Stone Cold was there. Rick Rude, the whole Hart Foundation, and see like all this to hear even more in detail how it happened. Great stuff. And then he did an uppercut.
And to me, it's funny, like because I always said like Rick Rude, all those old school guys. Pretty much everybody besides that was the Clique, and most of the Clique was gone by then. Yeah. It was literally just Triple H and Shawn Michaels. I don't think Shawn really had anybody at that point besides the corporation backing him.
Yeah, and then that's what he says. So, I think he feared for his life.
Yeah, and it's funny like how Rick Rude was one of the boys on Brett's side, and then the next night when DX calls him out, Rick Rude at that time was the manager of DX.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's the original DX guy, yeah.
Yeah, so he has to stand there and, be laughing at all this when Shawn is making fun of Brett, but on the inside, he's probably furious.
Oh, yeah, they said, like even they said Mick Foley quit. There was a lot of bitterness, I would say a lot of anger, a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of, they said, like, dishonesty. There was a lot of mixed feelings about this whole situation because, like, if Vince does it to Brett, that everybody will love Brett. He was well respected, like the Undertaker, one of their generals. It's like the untouchables, you can call it.
Yeah.
He does it to him. He can do it to all of us.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like when we say not a lot of people are fans of Brett, or a lot of people are, but some people don't personally like him and this and that. But to me, if you got guys like Mick Foley, the Undertaker, and all them on your side, and the only people on Shawn Michaels' side is like, no offense because I love him too, but Chico, Diesel, them, I'm going to take the people like Undertaker, Mick Foley, Rick Rude. I'm going to side with the Hitman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no reason for him. People are like, oh, he's bitter, he's angry. He got screwed. Literally, he got screwed.
Yeah, well, like Chico and Nash, they were already in WCW. but at
Yeah,
least Triple H. At least
yeah,
Triple H was there. China was there too, and I
yeah.
well Earl Hebner. Like I like how he's like hey, Earl was forced to do this,
Hmm.
and the story is very straightforward and he's like verbatim. Brett was he told him, "Hey, are you gonna screw me or not?" Like, no, I will never do it. He ended up doing it because of the pressure. It's your job. It's your livelihood on the line. So pretty much you have
Yes.
to do it.
To me,
But
yeah. Which I'm mixed on that. Part of me is like, okay, yeah, I get it, but I mean, and you never know what was said, what was going on. Maybe Earl, he was dipping into something he shouldn't have, and they had dirt on him, and they said, hey, if you don't do this, we're going to expose you. Who knows? But if you give your word to somebody as a man, and you say, I swear on the life of my kids, I'm not going to do this to you, and then you do it to them, to me, you're a pathetic piece of shit. I have no other
and then
words
and
besides
hey,
that. And
like
for him, and then he said, "Oh, Earl was." As soon as they think Earl rolled out of the ring, he got in the car. He said he was crying his eyes out, and
and he left. Yeah, if you see
and
the
he left
footage,
right away. And
if you
it's
see the
like to
footage,
me, yeah,
he
to
goes
me,
like
he's.
this, and then
Mhm.
boom, he storms
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
the ring.
To me, like I said, that's one of the reasons why even when I see him in AEW, I just make a joke. I'm like, here's this asshole. I do not like Earl Hebner. To me, like I said, there's a difference between don't make a promise to someone like that as a man if you're not going to go through with it.
Oh
That's
well,
all. That's
you
my
could
opinion.
have been like, hey, Brett. I mean, if they ask me to do it, I'm gonna have to do it. At least hey, be like, I'm sorry, but it's peer pressure. It's not personal. If I
Mhm.
have to do, if he dies, he dies. Like so.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But like I said, don't make a promise as a man and then break it and then run
And
off like a cow. At least stand there and face your demons.
I completely understand what you're saying. I will say, I'm not defending. I'm not defending.
Hmm.
I'm just saying like it's hard. I will say it has to be hard to be in those shoes.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
like you said, it's like it's a really rough situation, and that causes Brett to be bitter. He goes to WCW, doesn't like what's going on. They never use him properly.
Yeah,
That
that's what
he was like,
Stone Cold said. Like they have no idea how to use this guy. Like
yeah,
what are
well,
they
it
gonna
also
do? And Stone Cold even warned him. He said Diesel even told him. I
yes,
guess because like I said, him and Diesel, like Diesel was in the clique, but they out of everybody in the clique, him and Diesel probably got along the most because Diesel said he gave me my best matches and all this stuff. He told him, he's like, dude, if you come down here, like they don't know what the hell they're doing.
yeah. Yeah, and then still he had to go because, like, I mean, I'm a wrestler. He was still in his prime. He
Hmm.
could still go. So he's like, okay, and they're offering me like this huge amount of money that maybe I will never be able to sign a contract like this. So
Yeah,
I go over there, and I mean, they didn't have like the creative direction that he wanted, and
yeah,
then nothing good came out of that. I mean,
no.
he was the world champion for a few times. He had the matches with Sting, but nothing really on money making. They
Yeah,
did
and,
put
and
down
what was
Hogan.
his what was his first appearance? They didn't really go into it, but wasn't he a referee?
He was the referee in Starrcade '97.
Yeah,
Starrcade
and it
'97, he
was
was a
like,
Sting against Hulk Hogan for the World Heavyweight Championship, and he was the ref.
yeah, that's
And
I
that was
mean,
it.
it's like that's really his debut. To me, it should have been like, if anything, you book that match, Hogan wins, and then Hogan's, oh yeah, oh brother, like doing all the bullshit, and then Brett's music hits. And
Yeah,
then, like Brett said, that should have been the money feud. It should have been him and Hogan. That should have been running for how long?
yeah. And
Because
especially
we
knowing,
never.
Jean Paul, knowing that at WrestleMania 9, the whole crap with Yokozuna and
Yep.
Hogan winning the championship happened just solely on the fact that like he didn't want it to face Bret Hart because he's like, oh, he's too small. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
drop the title to somebody
Yeah.
that small.
And that's why they gave Brett the King of the Ring, because Hogan dropped the title back to Yokozuna because the plan was
Yes,
supposed to be Brett and Hogan. And
yes.
he's like, no, so he dropped it to Yoko then, and it was done.
And then of course Bret got it the next year at WrestleMania to
Yep.
Yoko in one of the most garbage matches in Mania.
Well,
You
I
know,
blame I blame Yoko for that. There ain't much Brett can do with a 500-pound fat
well, yeah,
slob.
and
No
you know how
offense
the
to
finish
Yoko,
is.
but
Yoko, he
yeah,
falls like he's trying to
yeah,
do the bonsai, and then done, and then
yeah.
he just spins him and done. It was But now, Jean Paul, I think I will say like this, the Montreal Screwjob, yeah, it opened eyes for a lot of people in professional wrestling. That people call it the beginning of the Attitude Era, and it was sad to see Bret and Hart go in this way
Yeah, because
because
and like what you said about the beginning of the Attitude Era, Stone Cold even said that a lot of people, they want to credit Austin for the Mr. McMahon because that was the biggest feud, but it was all because Brett and all this happened that really created the Mr. McMahon character.
yes, Yes, exactly, absolutely. Like the Mr. McMahon character is born with a screw job
Mm-hmm.
because after up to that point, people found out that like the owner of the WWE was Vince McMahon, and it
Yeah.
says even before that, maybe like a few months before that, this Red Hart is the one that like starts. He's the first person touching Vince McMahon. Remember
Yeah.
that promo that he says, "I'm frustrated.
Yep.
I'm frustrated." It's like I come back. I'm the best there is, the best there was, and nobody gives me the respect that I deserve. And then when
Mm-hmm.
he was saying that, that promo is absolutely phenomenal. You
Yeah. A
hear
lot of.
from so much intensity, and he's talking out of his heart.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people just say like Bret is bad at promos, and don't get me wrong. You watch a lot of Bret Hart promos. Yeah, 70% of them are. He's
Mm.
not. He's not good on a promo as good as he is in a ring. But there's promos like that and certain ones, especially in his heel run. Right before the end, before the screw job here. Great stuff. Like you said, maybe he needed to do that more often. Really speak from the heart instead of being formulaic. But you see, he was in the era where you couldn't really say much. What could you say? You had to
Yeah,
keep it G rated, not even PG.
yeah.
You couldn't even toe the line of being like, oh, like a little edgy. You had to keep it real straight. And, I think that had a lot to do with it. But you said a beautiful promo he cut, and he even said, like, they said, go out there, say what you want. We can bleep it because this is just for the live
Or
show.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
they were like, oh, no, we were on TV. This was live. And he's like, well, you guys told me to say whatever. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we did.
So yeah. So
Uh,
now let's go to like the main feud that these two had, Stone Cold and Bret Hart. Yeah, and I know you've seen that match many
mm-hmm.
times, and they went through every little thing. Great feud, and like, see, I love how they told the story, how they came up with the match, how they actually came up with the finish and everything. And they told him it's going to be a submission match, and Stone Cold is like, "Well, I'm not a submission guy. Like, I don't know how to apply submission holds."
Yeah, and
So
they even said with Brett, like, as good as Brett was and all this stuff, like, yeah, anybody could do like an arm bar and this and that, but I don't even think really arm bars were in WWE at that point.
no,
That's more of like a Japanese move.
yes,
Like Brett said, he had the sharpshooter in the figure four.
and done.
And,
Yeah.
that was it. So it was like, man, so like, like they said, they talked it over and they're like, well, what can we do? This thing isn't going to be a technical masterpiece at this point. Skip ahead just to go back. Stone Cold later on, he talked about, everything with Owen Hart and how unfortunately Owen, when he dropped him on his head, that really changed Stone Cold's style from like a more technical wrestler when he was like the ringmaster and all that stuff into like a brawler where
Yes.
the Texas rattlesnake and all that. So after becoming more of a brawler, it was like, Bret Hart was always good at focusing on people's strengths. He knew what his opponent was good at, and he said, let's build the match at what you're good at, because Bret was so good at pretty much everything, he could go with whatever.
He could
So they said,
adapt. He could
so
adapt.
they said, let's make this submission match a school fight. Like you
Yes.
said, Bret, the analogy he used, Bret was like, I was the star quarterback, and you were the new kid, the new badass, tough guy coming to the school, and it was the fight to see who was better. So
Yes.
they that's how they kept it, like a school fight, like a brawl, and it was a legit match. Everything, and you got to give Bret credit, because imagine if he had Stone Cold in the sharpshooter and there was no blood. Imagine how like it would still be legit, but it's way more legit
But
and
you see,
way
like
more
for example,
iconic.
like yeah, exactly. Like what you're saying is like, and that's the beauty of wrestling. See, that's the whole beauty of like, for example, like I know, like in this couple of weeks we have seen wrestling with no crowd and everything. But if you focus on the main thing, is like, see, Brett, like you said, he liked to tell a story. So it's like, okay, what do we need to make this from being decent to being awesome? To
Mm-hmm.
make it, outstanding, to make it remarkable. Hey, I'm gonna put you in the sharpshooter, my most dangerous move, my finisher.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we need blood, we need juice, and right away, and see Stone Cold cooperates. You see, if both men agree on something, that's when classics come.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, I mean, he was leaking, so I don't know if it was just like the sweat and all that, but I mean, there was like all that blood. It was a fantastic visual. And like I said, I actually saw like a picture of those papers that when he mentioned like the script or whatever you
Yeah,
want to call it,
yeah,
when the King had Jerry Lawler that had the blood splatter on it,
yeah,
because when he punched him, the blood it flew. It was on the King's
yeah,
sleeve and it was also on his papers, and
yeah.
it was all this stuff. And like we said, that's why when we talk about shows, we say, please, can there be a little blood? Let's see a little color, because look how much it adds to the match.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it more real. And even,
Hmm.
even he said, Brett says, like, the most That was the most, I will say, similar thing to UFC right now is this kind of match.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you compare UFC, like a real fight, like real atmosphere in wrestling, is this.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said,
And
like even he said, Stone Cold said, if you're gonna have to like blade yourself, but if not, I'll help you.
mm-hmm.
See, and then we got to see the blood, and it added so much to the match.
And speaking of UFC, who was the ref of this fight or
Oh,
this
it's
match?
most dangerous man of all time, Ken
Yeah,
Shamrock. Legit. And
yeah.
even
So that
he
was
said,
legit.
but see, Ken Shamrock also like attributes Bret Hart a lot. He said he taught me
Mm-hmm.
how to wrestle because of course I'm a brawler, I'm a
Yeah.
UFC guy. I know how to apply moves. I know how to make people submit. I'm legit. But how
Mm-hmm.
to move myself in the ring,
Yeah.
how to adapt to the WWE scenario,
Mm-hmm.
is pretty much Bret the Hitman Hart. And they
Yeah.
said that like when Bret left, that's when Shamrock's career kind of went downfall because it's like I was considered one of his guys. I was
Yeah.
considered Bulldog, Neidhart, Owen Hart, all of them.
Uh-huh.
So that's
Exactly.
why
And I mean
like
that's what I mean.
his
Like
push was cut
he
short.
has yeah, he had some success, but never what he should have been.
Oh,
You
well,
know.
he should have been champion. He
Yeah.
should have been World WWE champion. He had the look, the ankle lock in those days. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even have to twist. Remember that? Remember Angle how he like twists
Mm-hmm.
and then he goes on the floor and then he starts like putting more pressure.
Yeah.
Shamrock, as soon as like he get the hole locked in, he was
Uh-huh.
done. He was
Yeah,
done.
and to me, like I mean, I know you remember when he get that in, he had them crazy eyes, and he'd be screaming, and the person would be tapping out like mad, and it would take like 5 officials to pull Shamrock off the
Yes.
guy, and
Yes.
he'd be like, they'd be like, he went crazy, he's going ballistic, he's a madman. How do
Yes.
you not give him the belt, give him a run, and then you have, because at that point Shamrock would be heel. You have some white hot baby face come and beat him. Like to me, that's the perfect story.
It was great. I mean,
But,
Shamrock to me was like in his prime. He was awesome.
mm,
That guy. I mean, maybe not promo wise, but who cares at that point? And
yeah,
you put a mouthpiece with this guy, and then just let him wrestle. The guy
yeah,
could talk in the ring.
yeah,
He
and
was so good.
And I like how they said too, like with him, they felt comfortable, brawling and a lot into the crowd because you didn't really see that too much back then.
Yes.
And that's more of like a new thing that they do now. But they said Shamrock was the ref; he was with us, so they're like, we felt safe in case the crowd got rowdy and they started to beat down on one of us because they knew Shamrock would just choke anybody out.
Yes, and then that's what I mean. Like it's because Ken Shamrock to me is one of the most legit fighters of all time. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, I watched TNA based on the fact that Ken Shamrock's still there. Most people will hate, but hey, I love the ankle lock. I love Kurt Angle to death, but I will always say remember when you will talk to me, you say the ankle lock. I'll say Ken Shamrock because
Mm-hmm.
he brought that hole into WWE.
Well, I mean, I know all joking aside, but you say Kurt Angle, man, he stole his finisher from Ken
From
Shamrock.
Shamrock, yeah,
He stole his theme from the Patriot. Do you
yeah.
remember the Patriot? He had the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
theme.
he's all like, yeah, he stole from everything. Yeah, Kurt Angle. I mean, Kurt Angle is badass, but like everything was stolen from other people. The only thing that he did was like the Olympic slam,
Hmm?
because even like the belly to belly, that's Shamrock. But the variation is different because Angle will do
For
the
the belly
throw,
to belly, and what's his name did
yeah,
that too.
over the head, belly to belly,
Douglas,
yeah. But like
Shane
Shamrock will
Douglas.
do like the Bailey, the Bailey to Bailey. That was,
That's Shane Douglas. He was
and that's
doing
Shane
that.
Douglas too.
He was
Yeah.
doing that in like 94, 95. So
Well, we in a previous video, you talk about how like Triple H copied everything from Shane
yeah,
Douglas. Yeah, so it
Shane
was really
Douglas is legit.
it,
John Cena, he copied the Triple Threat, the
the
franchise.
franchise. Yeah, so it was so great to just hear the Hitman and Stone Cold, relive it.
Yeah.
Revisiting this whole rivalry that was amazing. Stone Cold wins the Royal Rumble at the expense of Bret the Hitman Hart,
Mm.
1997.
And
This match turns out to be
that's
like
what
the best match of that card.
Yeah, that leads into probably one of my favorite matches because I love all four guys in there. That it's at an In Your House. I forget what like the name of it is. It's like the special name of the match, but when it's Undertaker, Vader, Stone Cold, and Bret Hart when he wins the title, then 'cause
Yes,
all the
yes.
guys it was
Because
like
it
they
was
were
vacated.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Yes, because it was like, Sean, he won, and then it was like done, and then it was like, okay, then all this shit, and then, but I mean, like everything after, it was just all bullshit, because then like, Brett wins it, and then the next night loses to Sid.
Yeah, yeah, and
So,
then done, and then done. Yeah, it was just like different, but I will tell you, like, at least it was so good to see like the perspectives of Bret Hart, how the match came together. how the rivalry came together and how much respect Stone Cold and Bret Hart had for each other. And say,
Yeah.
hey, you bring me up to great matches. Hey, you always were there for me. You were the guy that got me in WWE because Bret Hart says at the beginning of the interview, hey, I will always go and talk to Vince about guys. Why don't
Mhm.
you bring this guy? Why don't you bring this
Yeah.
guy? And he
Yeah.
saw him on ECW. He's like, when are you going to bring this Austin kid? And
Yeah.
it's like the next week you were there. You were in the locker room. So
Yeah,
see,
because I think Brett, or not Brett, Austin, he was in ECW for like maybe 3 or 4 episodes. He had a feud with Mikey Wimprick and Sandman. They were in like the three of them were in a feud for the ECW title, and then he lost. Stone Cold lost in that, and then he had like a rematch, and then it was done.
yeah. And then he went to WWE, and then the
Yeah.
Ringmaster and all of that. Yeah.
And also like all this stuff, like you said, they needed people at that time. Everything was it was all stale. They had nobody. Who they had? They had Undertaker, Brett, Shawn, but like all the big names were leaving. WCW was really taking off because everybody was buying into the NWO and all that stuff. And Stone, like, so that's what I mean. There's so much that Bret Hart did. Now I'm not saying they would have never brought in Stone Cold if it wasn't for him, but imagine if they did.
Oh yeah, like
That's what I
I
mean.
will
So
say
you
that. No,
gotta
Bret
give
Hart
him.
did so much for them, and that's why he says it hurt so much when he did that to me,
Mm-hmm.
because like I gave him everything. He's like 12 to 13 years of my life, I never complained. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
no Christmas, I miss a lot of stuff with time with my kids and everything, and then he does this thing to me, and it probably was really bad. After that, Owen dies, and then
Mm-hmm.
he's they talk about Owen and how much he was respected in the locker room. He'll bring the joy. He'll be like the funny guy. I will say a funny, like a clown. I don't want to say clown, but the funny guy. He'll bring the
Mm-hmm.
joy to
Yeah,
everybody.
like they said, if they're on like a 3 week
Tour.
straight tour, and it's like, oh, we don't get to see our families, we don't get to rest. They said if when Owen walks in the room, you just know something funny's gonna happen. He's gonna be screwing with somebody. He's gonna be putting icy hot, on their balls. He's gonna be doing something. He's gonna make people be freaking out. Like everybody's gonna be laughing. Like he just,
He was
they
the
said he was just like
charismatic
a
guy,
he
the
was
funny
just
guy.
like a ball. He was just like a ball of like joy, energy, good vibes and all
Yes.
that. And then that's one of those things where it's like, why are those people the ones who always have to leave so early? But it's unfortunate. And then one thing too, like we said, earlier going on when Brett, how he was saying like after all these years and they screwed me like this, like he said, he was just sitting there. And when Undertaker was pissed, he's like, I'm gonna go get Vince. And he said Vince came in and was talking to him, and he said like, am I gonna like kick Vince's ass like butt naked? Like, is this what's gonna happen? And he's like,
Yes.
no, no.
Yes.
He's like, that's not gonna be a good sight if I jump on him, completely naked right out of the shower, beating him up. So he's getting his shoes on, his everything, his pants, shorts, whatever. I think he said he just had pants and shoes on.
Yeah. He said like
And
I was like,
yeah,
no shirt. Yeah.
yeah, and he was like, if this guy, he's like, by the time I'm done tying my shoe, if this guy's still here, he's like, I'm just gonna deck him. And then he even called. Then see, that's what I mean. Like, that's how smart he is. He was like, before Vince and I, like, we had this like thing where we tied up,
Yeah.
and then he was like, the way he remember how Vince grabbed him, because obviously they probably didn't talk about it. They probably just like, oh, we're gonna tie up this and that, whatever. He's like, the way Vince grabbed him, he knew that Vince would be able to block a swing, like a
Yeah.
right hook. So he's like, I'm just gonna be tying my shoe, and if he's still there, as soon as I'm done, I'm just gonna come up with an uppercut, and boom.
And
And
he
then
got
that's what he
knocked
did.
out, but like
Yeah.
not
And
even the score.
he said he knocked him out, and there were who was there? Briscoe, Patterson, Shane, and
Yeah.
Slaughter, and they were like, and he's like, get him out of here, and Shane's like, no, he can't even stand. Let him become conscious. He's like, I don't give a shit. Get him out of here.
Get him out of here. Yeah. And then that's what happened. And see, he went WCW like we said, and that didn't work out. And then finally, towards the end of the interview, he talks about the thing that he prized himself the most, and he says, "I was always the safest wrestler, the
Mm-hmm.
safest. I never got anybody
Yeah.
injured. Everybody could, that work with me. They knew that I was going to be on point. That they didn't have to worry about anything. That he's like I learned with like the Japanese. He mentions a name, Nakasato or something like that. He said like they taught him how to like
Yeah. And that's and
chop and all of that, like pretend,
yeah, and that's
and
one of those things. I've seen matches with him, or at least with I saw tag matches with him and Owen in Japan. Owen, he wrestled guys like Tiger Mask, like the original Tiger Mask, legit matches over there. And I believe that's when they were kind of with Stampede. So
Yes,
because I feel
yes.
like and he even talks about a match with the Dynamite Kid,
Ladder match.
legit. Yeah, a ladder match, and his dad said that was the best match he's ever seen. And when I heard that, I was like, "Ooh, man, I gotta go on the internet and try to find this match," because I'm a huge Dynamite Kid fan. And so there's like all these good matches, and that's the thing I was thinking too. I mean, hindsight's always 2020, but I'm like, imagine if he would have went to Japan after WWE. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Japan wasn't that big, you know, and it was one of those things where it was like it was easier for him to just go to Atlanta than to go, to Japan. But you had guys like Tiger Mask was still over there. Jushin Thunder Liger was there. That was in the prime of his career. Those would have been the guys that Brett would have wrestled. I mean, there were so
Yes.
many other guys over there as well. But, he could have made a name for himself in Japan again. And what you're leading into, he wouldn't have got a super kick from the freaking giant gorilla Goldberg. And, his career would have kept going.
The
And who knows?
most unsafe wrestler of all time.
And this is why I respect Bret Hart. He's not going to come onto the WWE network or wherever. He's not going to hold back. He was shooting. He said, like, him and Stone Cold, they were laying in punches. He's like, I don't know, these weren't his exact words, but he's like, yeah, I don't do those little pussy slaps like the honky talk, man.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He said like I
Yeah,
will not. It's like in the back. He says I
yeah,
will not do these things like like you don't even feel them. But
yeah,
it's like I'll
yeah,
make sure you're good. I'll make sure you don't come back. You don't go to the back like her. Be like, oh God, my back. But like
yeah.
I make sure at least it's a punch.
Yeah, and like one of Brett's, his signatures is he does like the elbow from the top. He like, he comes down and like not
Yes.
like the macho elbow, but he's like every time I went to the top rope, and even in Japan, when he was younger, people were like, this guy's legit. You don't got to be like, oh my God, I'm gonna be swallowing my teeth in 2 seconds when he
Mhm.
knocks him out. You knew
Yes.
he was legit, and like Brett said, he would hurt himself, more
Before hurting the other
before.
rest.
Yeah, and that's the
Yes.
thing. So
And
and like I said.
what did he tell Goldberg? He's like, Bill, can you please what?
He's like, we can do anything you want, just don't hurt me. And that was
What
the
does he
first.
do?
And then Bill Goldberg's like, anything you want, so that means I can try for a super kick the first time I've ever done one.
Uh,
And then look
and
what
done.
happened.
And done. And his career was done, and that's why also he called Seth Rollins really unsafe. Because
Yeah,
Seth Rollins also has I will say he has a reputation of injuring
yes.
people.
Seth Rollins has a track record of injuring guys. That's
Yeah.
why every time he does the buckle bomb, even now when they do the buckle bomb Inzaguri combo with Buddy Murphy, every time he throws like Montez Ford, it's like anytime it's a smaller guy like that, I always like cringe a little bit because I'm like, I saw when he did the buckle bomb to Finn Balor on the
Finn Balor,
barricade at SummerSlam, that took him out. Buckle bomb at on
Sting.
Sting, that took him out. And I mean, that's kind of funny that Seth Rollins, one of his idols was Bret Hart, and then Bret Hart was like, he's unsafe. And I know Seth Rollins was like, that really hurt me. Well,
Yeah.
then, dude, get better in the
But then
ring.
become safe.
Yeah,
Be more safe when you do the moves. Or
yeah,
don't
that's
do
what I
the
mean.
move at
Like,
all.
don't be mean to me, Bret Hart. It's like, dude, get better in the ring.
Yeah. Or like, well, he even went to the extent of saying like to Triple H is like you don't need because like how will like the game will put Triple H like always at a higher rate than Bret
Uh-huh.
Hart. He'll say he doesn't even have the quality to lace my shoes.
Yeah,
And it's true though. It is true because like see Bret Hart like technical wrestler. There's a great match with Chris Benoit. That's on his DVD on Chris Benoit like one of these DVDs that he had. Great match. But I mean these guys like are all about wrestling. They're
mm-hmm.
not even about being a character, putting a show for people.
No,
It's
and
just
that's
the art of
yeah.
professional
And
wrestling.
that's why in the spirit of shooting, I'm gonna feel I think that's a reason why you don't like the Hitman as much as me, because we both love wrestling, but for different reasons. Guys who you love from that generation, Undertaker, Macho Man, they were great in the ring, but they had the character.
Yes.
If you didn't care about the wrestling at all, and you only cared about the character, gong,
Yes.
or ooh, yeah. Like, what was
Yes.
Brett? I mean, Brett came out in the leather jacket. He had the music, that guitar riff. For me, every time I hear that guitar riff, I pop.
I
So
will
the
say though,
guitar
his
riff,
theme music, his
and
theme song,
and
legit.
but the only character was the leather jacket and the glasses. As soon as he
Yeah.
gets in the ring, he's just a wrestler.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. Like, if you're into it for the character, then he might not be your cup of tea. But if you appreciate, wrestling just for the art and the sport, then he is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever
No
will be.
doubt. I mean, Bret Hart, like I said, even I won't put him like he's better than Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
in a few, and when it comes to like mastery of holds and everything, because his moveset was way different than Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Sean had the super kick, he had the elbow, but like Brett had other things like the bulldog, like the different elbow and like more holes. Like he will do the counters. The counters that Bret Hart
Mm-hmm.
did, they were like he was a pioneer at the time because he
Yeah,
won
and
a lot of his matches with a counter and how he countered the sharpshooter.
mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing I will always love, and I will always tell people that are getting into professional wrestling, are starting to understand the business. I will say the ability for a wrestler to hit your finisher anytime, anywhere, that's what makes a legit finisher.
Oh yeah.
See, sharpshooter is like the RKO. Out of nowhere, you could be like you doing a hole, boom, twisted, turns it,
Mm-hmm.
sharpshooter. So even the fact that like so many people do it, and then they say, yeah, Sting was the one that like even started doing the sharpshooter and everything. Sting not as good as Bret.
Yeah, they said like
No
we're
person
like
can
yeah.
apply the sharpshooter like Bret Hart.
Yeah, because Brett, he gets the legs up high and he gets his hips, spread wide and he gets low. He really gets it in there. Where Sting, he gets it, but to me, the Scorpion Death Drop is better.
And
Like the DDT or whatever he does, like that.
oh, the score, yeah, the reverse inverted DDT, yeah, the
Yeah,
Scorpion
yeah,
Dead Drop. At least that's more to me believable,
yeah,
rather than the Scorpion Dead Lock.
yeah,
That is the sharp. To me, the sharpshooter is the fact that even Benoit did it, The
yeah.
Rock did. I mean, well, Natalia, of course, we know why she does it, but I mean, the fact that Chris Benoit, a guy like that, a guy
Mm.
that talented,
Yeah,
use
well,
that.
I'm pretty sure he trained in the Hart Dungeon.
Yeah, he did. He did. He did. He
So,
trained with Owen, with like Brad, with all of them, with all of them. Even
mm,
like the one that never did it was Jericho. Jericho didn't, and Lance Storm. They didn't do it in the. Although being from Canada and from that part of the country and everything, they never went to the dungeon. It was just these guys. But like me and Brad became a success. The only wrestler featuring The Simpsons. The only
yeah,
wrestler featuring The Simpsons, and an episode when Mr. Burns loses all his money. That's how I met the Bret the Hitman Hart, because I watched that episode when I was 7 years old. I'm like, oh, that's a wrestler. Let me look for him. And then boom.
that's legit.
And I saw it and I'm like, oh, this guy sucks. But then as I kept watching, at least I can tell you, I respect the hell out of Bret Hart. Mostly after this interview, even more because like you said, his ability of being truthful to himself.
Yeah, and that's
He doesn't have
whenever.
to like sweet talk WWE and be like, oh, they're legit, they love me,
Yeah,
they
and
made it up to me. Even the match of WrestleMania 26 with Vince, no, nah, it doesn't matter. He shoots at them, and now he's on AEW too. And
yeah,
like you
that's the
said,
one thing I said. I was surprised he was even on here. But to me, it was probably, like no offense, but people like Vicky Guerrero and all those like mid card and lower people, if they talk with AEW, Vince is like, cut them off. Who cares? How much money is Vicky Guerrero earning me? But Bret Hart, you're not gonna like blacklist Bret Hart, even though he held up the AEW championship like he won the damn thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, how, like, what are you going to do? Blacklist Bret Hart? No.
And like a
So,
month after he was inducted in the Hall of Fame with
yeah.
the Anvil.
Yes,
So
that's what yeah. So you're not going to do that to Bret Hart. But I do like the one thing that you said, you got to respect him. It don't matter where he is, if he's talking to some, shoot, interview on YouTube, or if he's, here on the WWE Network. Every time he tells a story, he tells the exact same story. He doesn't lie. It's all the same. And, that's who you got to respect. And he doesn't care. He tells it how it is. Because why not
yeah,
tell
he
it?
doesn't. Yeah, he tells it how it is. Yeah, that's what I respect about the guy. He's like, hey, I put the best matches. He knows and he can back it up. You said he
Mm-hmm.
can back it up because I've seen those matches, the execution of the with
And
anybody.
and to me, I don't know what, like, the Broken Skull sessions, how they're going to work. But if I could see, out of all the episodes we saw so far, I would say I could watch another one with The Undertaker and another one with Bret Hart. Because there's
Yeah.
still so much that you could hear from these guys. Goldberg, his episode, what I like, to me, no. But like Kane was good. Big Show was good. But it was like, for next, RVD, they filmed his, so that should be coming out. Maybe that will be the next one. I would love to see one with Mick Foley next. A lot of
I would
people
love to
talk
see
about
Mick
Mick
Foley.
Foley.
I would love to see Kurt Angle. I would
Hmm.
love to see one with Jericho. I know it will be impossible, but I
Yeah,
mean
that's
Jericho will be
that's what I was.
legit.
He would be a good one, but obviously that will never
Even I
happen.
will do one with Sean. And
Yeah,
then kind of talk about his side of Bret Hart and the screw
Yeah,
job, and then going
the only
about.
thing with that is, and that's why I said I want to see a second episode with Brett, is because they spent almost the first half of this episode just talking about the screw job.
Yes,
And
yes,
to
there
me,
was so much.
I would have liked to learn. I mean, they did go a little bit into his history, like he said, from the 4 or 5 years old. He was watching guys train in his basement, and even at a young age, he could be like, "Oh, I know why this guy's good. I know why this guy's not good." So he grasped the concept of wrestling from an early age, and I believe him just because of how good he was in the ring and everything. So I don't, doubt when he says that, but I want to know more of like his upbringing and all that, and more of like, his life post WWE. Like, what's he doing now? Maybe they didn't go into that because what is he gonna say? Oh, I'm doing stuff with AEW, or
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
like,
He's like,
you're
well, what
not
do you
gonna.
want to do? It's like, oh, yeah. Well, I do stuff with AEW now. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be in the main event of AEW Dynamite tomorrow. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
and they didn't talk about the Hall of Fame attack and anything like that.
yeah.
But
Well, they didn't go in detail, like you said. They have so much things that you could talk about. Maybe in the I would have said, for example, people like Bret Hart, people like The Undertaker, you do like a 2-part episode because
mm,
there's so much you
yeah,
can learn from these guys. But it's so nice to like get to see different sides of them, like we said in every single like person that they do. And again, my respect for the Bret the Hitman Hart. I will say, I come forward like Brett says, I come forward to you. I said I was never a big fan of his, but I respect the hell out of him because he loves the same thing I do. So.
mm,
So, guys, this concludes the whole thing. And like we said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the new subscribers, and please, 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 help us out subscribing to the channel. Give us like the bell, no notifications. Why? Because you probably are stuck at home. So there's nothing else to do. So watch Road Break. We have like the Broken Skull sessions. We got Jean Paul's Wrestling Hall with all like pro wrestling crates. We have reviews from every single wrestling show imaginable in the world. Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, AEW, you name it. Pay-per-view we do. We have gameplay, soccer, wrestling. So we have a lot of content. We have you covered. We have you covered. So please help us out with that. Jean Paul in the social media world, they can find us also, correct?
yep, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We got it all. Like, follow us. Like I said, we try to do updates as much as we can in videos. When we do them, we'll tell you the news. We don't like to just make 2-3 minute videos and be like, oh, this is happening, and then next week we're like, oh, just kidding, that was just a rumor. But
Yes.
anytime we see stuff, we do post it on the social medias like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So those are the ones you want to follow us if you want the news immediately. But YouTube is the place to see the reviews and everything like that. So we got everything covered. So like Juan just said, please follow us on all there. Turn on the bell, and we have so much content coming because wrestling never stops. Neither do we. And if we can make your day, like Triple H, he said it best. If we can make your day, if we can distract you from a little bit, make your day a little happier, then we're happy.
Exactly. That's what we do. That's the reason we started to do this because we have a passion and we want to share our passion with all of you guys. Get you involved in this world of professional wrestling. Get you involved in the world of soccer, the world of sports. Get your mind out of things. We're
Mm-hmm.
going through a crisis, but crisis can be through better. You can deal with them a lot better with a smile on your face. So in the name of Jean Paul and myself, thank you so much for watching. Stay healthy, family. Drink a lot of liquid, like Jean Paul said, and keep a positive attitude. We're gonna get through this at Road Break. We're gonna get it as a family. So in the name of Jean Paul and myself, we'll be back for Dynamite. We'll be back for more. So in the name of Jean Paul and myself, we want to both say,
Ah,
ah, yeah!